Joseph Stalin is one of the most colorful figures in world history. He took the biggest country in the world and turned it into a superpower. He was a man who inhumanely killed millions of people, but also saved the world. The most evil man on the good side of history. Joseph Stalin was born into a poor Georgian family. Only back then, his name was not Stalin. He adopted that self-imposed nickname later on. Stalin roughly translates into Man of Steel, and also sounds kinda similar to Big Papa Lenin, whose name was also not Lenin. Pretty nice of Joe too, it's way easier to say Stalin than Jugashvili. Young Stalin had a few accidents as a kid. For example, he was run over by a carriage which crippled his arm. Joe went to church school where he showed his gift for studying along with causing trouble. He started reading pro-revolutionary novels as well as that one book from that German dude with a goofy beard. Now some people are very good at singing. That's their talent, that's their thing. Others can dance, and some can stick a spoon onto their body while desperately looking if anyone around them is actually impressed. Stalin's talent was to organize strikes and find fundings for his cause, legally or otherwise. And let's be honest, it was always otherwise. Once he robbed a bank in broad daylight and ran off with around $4 million in today's money. Those were pretty much Stalin's early revolutionary Bolshevik days. He'd steal some money and go into hiding waiting to get caught. Once exiled to Siberia, Joe would escape and repeat everything. During this time, Stalin had a couple of illegitimate kids which he never recognized. Meanwhile, the First World War had begun. Stalin wasn't drafted due to that crippled arm we mentioned earlier. Don't worry, it was his left hand, so he could still consult with Dr. Hands. There's a famous Georgian saying that no, we haven't just made up, and it goes, if one working arm is not good enough to shoot a rifle, use it to run a party newspaper and help the revolution. And that is exactly what Stalin did. After Red October, the Russian Empire fell. Lenin and Stalin, together with Leon Trotsky, were the main people in power of the new Russian Soviet Republic. Now that the communists took over, it was time to clean up loose ends. Loose ends being any type of opposition. Stalin was given military command, and he readily gave us a sneak peek into his future decision-making. Joe sent the army into the enemy thinking that numerical advantage alone would be enough. He suffered heavy losses. That, of course, wasn't his fault. Stalin went on a hunt to find the treacherous spies who set him up. Did you know your officers could be imperialist spies? What? No, who told you that? Don't worry about it, just go with it. So, listen to this idea. It's a great idea, trust me, okay? Okay. We put the officers on a ship, lock them up, sink the ship, and then we tell Lenin they drowned during transport. That's a terrible idea. You're a terrible idea. You know what? Actually, today's your lucky day. Here's a coupon for a free boat trip. The Bolshevik intellectuals at the time looked down on Stalin, who wasn't greatly educated and possessed those well-known Georgian countryside manners. Even Lenin himself didn't think highly of Stalin's IQ plays. So, they gave Stalin the position of general secretary, which nobody really wanted. Big mistake. Stalin used it to gain more power, while differences between him and Lenin grew larger by the day. After some health issues, Lenin passed away, which was very convenient of him. His death in 1924 left Stalin in charge, the undisputed champion of the Soviet Union. Well, Trotsky disputed him, but not for long. One thing you need to know about Stalin is that he was a bit paranoid, and by a bit, we mean he was completely out of his mind. 5-year economic plans, forced labor, deportations, gulags, also famine, lots of famine, literally millions of people dead from famine. Any form of disobedience or just simply arguing resulted in swift death or imprisonment, usually without even a trial. Stalin commenced his famous Great Purge. Any suspicion at all was enough to get you sent to a Siberian gulag. And by any suspicion, more often than not, it meant no suspicion whatsoever. Oh, and if you went to a gulag, you were one of the lucky ones. Most were just shot dead. Stalin was endlessly coming up with new lists of people for execution and deportation. Okay, so we have Vladimir, Dmitry, Alex, and Poles. What? Poles. Put Poles on the list. Poles, like the people? The Polish people? Yeah, I don't really trust the Poles. Let's just, get rid of them. Alright, is that it? Oh, and Latvians. Those sneaky little Latvians. And while you're at it, I never really got into that whole we are Jews and we exist whole thing. You know what I mean? I have no idea what. Yes, I know exactly what you mean. More than 1 million people were killed that we know of, and many more were sent to prison. 90% of the army's generals, 80% of its colonels, and well over half of its corps commanders were all purged. Good thing there was absolutely no sign of a huge war coming up. When Hitler took Austria and parts of Czechoslovakia, it became obvious that a war was inevitable. Stalin needed to pick a side, but it's not as easy to do that when you dislike both. The Allies, however, weren't yet ready to commit to a relationship with the Soviets, so Stalin told his foreign minister Molotov to strike a non-aggression deal with the Nazis. With the pact now in place, both Germany and the Soviets entered Poland like it was a hot girl who ordered pizza. Britain and France immediately declared war on the Nazis, but were somehow cool with the Soviets' Polish adventure. When the Nazis blew everyone's mind with how easily they destroyed France, the whole world was like, say what, girlfriend? It was time for Stalin to act. He felt that the Finnish border was way too close to Leningrad and feared that the Nazis would exploit that. So Stalin was like, hey Finns, hand us over some land for no reason. In a shocking turn of events, Finland said no. This caused Stalin to start the Winter War. Due to the lack of capable generals who were still alive, the Soviets made every single decision wrong, from the color of the uniform to the overall strategy. I called you in here to tell you that I want to defeat Finland and I want it done by next Friday. That's too soon, I think we should be more careful. But Adolf could do it. Well, okay then, we should take our best equipment and beeline it straight to Helsinki. Or we stretch it throughout the country and get some tanks in. And then the planes. And then some machine guns. And maybe some AKs. That's awesome! We'll do that! Besides, that first idea was totally gay! Anyway, that whole thing was an embarrassment for the Soviets. Thanks to their own stupidity, they allowed a Finnish farmer boy to become the deadliest sniper in history. Stalin managed to annex the Baltic countries with little struggle, but then made the mistake of entering Romania, which is where Hitler's oil was coming from. Molotov had to take some time off from making his killer cocktails and visited Hitler, who assured him that they were still chill. Spoiler alert, they weren't. The British sent warnings that Germany was preparing an attack, but Stalin dismissed their info just based on the fact that the British were the source and Joe thought they were kinda sketchy. Now the Eastern Front in World War II is probably the most insane thing that happened in history, and we can't really go into too much detail now, but we'll hit you with some numbers. The Soviets were incredibly unprepared thanks to Stalin's purge. In the very first day, 3 Russian divisions were destroyed. In a month, the Germans had won an area double the size of their own country. And after just 3 months of war, the Russians had lost nearly 3 million men. In the siege of Leningrad alone, which lasted for over 2 years, more human beings died than the total war dead of Britain and the United States combined. However, Hitler overstretched. It was too much to fight on 2 fronts. Stalin and the Russian winter started a counterattack. Joe threw people into battle as if they were nothing. Retreat was regarded as treason. People argue that only a man such as Stalin, a man with a complete disregard for human life could so carelessly throw away millions and in turn win the biggest war in the history of mankind. And it was at the Eastern Front that the war in Europe was won. D-Day contributed by moving the Iron Curtain and ending it all sooner. 4 years and 27 million dead Russians later, the Red Army captured Berlin and ended the war in Europe. For a brief period of time, Uncle Joe Stalin was a beloved friend of the world. Everyone knew that the Soviet Union became one of the great powers and held them responsible for winning the war, something that changed over the years due to poor marketing. In the years following the war, the tensions between the Allies grew. I don't know if you're aware of this, but communism and capitalism don't really go hand in hand. Stalin saw the atomic bomb dropped on Japan and was like, I'd love me one of those. The US and the Soviets raced to spread their influence across the world. Not long after the war, Stalin's health started going south. He was found dead at the age of 74. Despite all his cruelties, masses flooded the streets to pay their respects to the man who propelled the Soviet Union to the top of the world. The crowd was so huge that hundreds of people lost their lives. They were the last entries to Joseph Stalin's famous lists. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to click on the bell icon at the bottom of the screen in order to be notified when a new video comes out. See you soon!